recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Smucker, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for holding this hearing. I'd like to thank the ranking member as well. I have just a few points I'd like to make. The first in response to the charges that the TCJA contributed to the deficit. Now, I completely agree that during the Trump administration, the debt increased significantly more than I would certainly have liked to have seen. But it wasn't the TCJA, because if you're arguing that contributed, you essentially would be saying that the tax cuts that came as a part of that resulted in less revenue, which was absolutely not the case. In fact, revenues were higher every single year after 2017, and in 2021, they're 22% higher than in 2017. So it wasn't as a result of the TCJA, which, by the way, worked very, very well in bringing lots of jobs, lifting people out of poverty, and so on, but did not contribute to less revenue. What contributed to the debt increase was more spending. And based on the record of the Biden administration in its first year, we're going to see far higher debt increases during his administration if we continue on this same track. Now, on whether we should have a debt limit, I think it's a good discussion, and I think we're having a good discussion here today, but in some ways it feels sort of tone deaf to me. Americans are experiencing the highest inflation in 40 years. It's affecting their pocketbooks. I hear it throughout my district everywhere I go, and I'm sure you all do as well. And Americans are going to see this hearing as the Democrats essentially asking for a blank check to spend even more and contribute more to these inflationary policies. So it's sort of tone deaf. What we really should be talking about is the real problem that we have. $30 trillion in debt. It's unfathomable. And in fact, if you do a quick calculation, I think the debt went up just during the time of this hearing by another $120 million. Think about that. We know how it ends when countries overspend, overpromise, and spend money we don't have. And we're starting to see the effects of that. Back to the discussion on the debt limit, I get the concerns with it, but when else will we talk about? In fact, the entire time that we've been here in Congress, I don't remember much discussion about the problem with the debt. I don't remember much discussion about spending much more money than we have. The debt limit at least forces us to talk about it. And I'd like to ask other members here, I'd like to ask the Democrat leadership, when will be the right time to talk about this excessive spending? When will be the right time to talk about the impact that the debt's going to have on future generations and on our economy in America? When will it be? At least when we're talking about the debt increase, it's one time, the only time, frankly, since I've been here, when we have at least some semblance of these discussions. And so, my fellow representative, Representative Boyle from Pennsylvania, love to work with him to find solutions to ensure that we put our country on a different track. But it feels like talking about the debt limit is sidestepping the
would my fellow since he invoked me, my fellow Pennsylvanian yield just for a second?
Because I don't want to give up my 5 minutes, but it's up to the chairman.
You can yield your time.
I'll just say,
go ahead.
I'll just say briefly, I'm happy to work with you or anyone else on this issue in good faith. I will point out the argument, though, that the debt ceiling is somehow the drama around the debt ceiling and
right, I'm going to need to retake my time because I didn't hear the chairman say he would give me an.
I'll give you.
Okay. All right. Fine. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a deal. See. I'll say this, the idea that it's only the debt ceiling drama that's needed for us to talk about deficit and debt is not accurate. I would point out 1992, Ross Perot built an entire independent presidential campaign, the most successful since Teddy Roosevelt, got 19%. Literally his entire campaign was about deficit and debts and him hosting infomercials showing charts. And that wasn't at all brought about by the debt ceiling issue. So with that, I'll yield back.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank you for that comment, because I think a real discussion around our debt and the future of our financial responsibility in America is what is needed. So I'd love to have that substantive discussion. But until we have other mechanisms that provide accountability, I have concerns about removing the debt limit. So, we should be talking about a balanced budget. How can we get to a balanced budget in 10, 20 years from now? These are the kind of discussions that I think we should be having, and we should be talking about redoing the Budget Act of 1974 to insert more accountability in the process here in Congress. So again, love to have those conversations with you. I'm concerned about just the interest payments, and Director Mulvaney, if we're going to see rising interest payments, it's already 9% of the total budget. This is going to crowd out other obligations, other priorities. Do you have any concern with that? And what do you see that trajectory being over the next?
All right, Mick can
decade or
answer.
so?
You can answer the question in your time.
Dollars. I mean, I'm not very good at math, but I mean, dollars. If interest rates are 6%, you're looking at $1.8 trillion in interest payments. I mean, it's a huge number. You're already looking at interest payments, I think, that are bigger than every appropriations bill except defense. It's a huge number, and it's only going to continue to get bigger.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Chairman, for your generosity there.
Absolutely.